Words so sharp, they cut right through. Real talk for the soul's appeal. Prayers rise up the wounds they heal. Lift our voices to the sky. A righteous perspective high. On this path we won't back down. For the Father wears the crown. Each step brings another fight. Breaking chains, we're seeking light. Voice of power won't be tamed. With his love, we're never shamed. Lift our voices to the sky. A righteous perspective high. On this path we won't back down. For the Father wears the crown. From the ashes we shall rise. Hope is found deep in our eyes. Every word a battle cry. With the Father none deny.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ARP in the Morning. I am your host, Wise, and I appreciate you guys pulling up this morning. We got a lot to get into. We got a great show today. But before we get into the show, man, you know I like to show love to everybody that pulls up in the morning. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to the Blues. I seen Regina Connell, first person in the building this morning. Shout out to you, sister. God bless you. Appreciate you pulling up. Terry M, appreciate you pulling up this morning. What's going on, Terry Barnes? Eric Smith in the building. Appreciate you pulling up this morning. You dipped out. We were still live. We went for 2 hours yesterday, bro. We was on this thing for 2 hours yesterday. You popped in and was like, this must not be live, and then popped out. I was like, oh, man, he dipped out on us. Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Thank you very much, man. What's going on, Ed Marr? How you doing this morning, brother? Appreciate you. I hope it's warm down there in Mississippi. It is going to be a nice day today out here in Maryland. It's going to be gorgeous out today. Eric Smith, you better get outside, get you some steps in, man. Go enjoy this warm weather because you know you give it a day and it can turn. That's how it is out in this area here in the DMV, man. It's warm one day and it'll be freezing cold tomorrow. It's ridiculous. Appreciate you guys pulling up as always. FRK9, appreciate you pulling up as always. What's going on, Kenny Cooper? How you doing this morning, brother? Appreciate you pulling up today. Who do I miss? Terry M. Let's see. What's up, Tina Hall? How you doing today, sister? Appreciate you pulling up. What's up, Kenny G? Kenny G in the building. Go check his store out, man. PIstore.com. Or I'm sorry, PIstyle.store. Go check him out. He has some really, really dope merch over there. What's going on, B? How you doing today, sister? Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Thank you very much. RJ Hudson in the building, as always. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you pulling up. Make sure I didn't miss anybody from the ARP. Little Santana, Paula Albrecht, appreciate you pulling up. Missouri is in the house this morning. Let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. It's crazy, man, because we have people not just all across the country, but across the world that watches the channel, which is phenomenal. So humbling. So humbling. It's just so crazy. You know, I see people from New Zealand and from the UK and, you know, South Africa and Australia, and it's just crazy. Who would have thought, man? Who would have thought? BC USA, appreciate you pulling up. Texas in the building. We got Florida in the building. What's going on, Christy? Chi-Town in the building. Hey, Carol, another Chi-Town. Y'all back to back, huh? Do y'all know each other? Good morning, good morning, good morning to each and every one of you all. Appreciate you pulling up this morning. Like I said, we got a lot to get into today, man. We got a good show. I don't know if we'll go as long as we did yesterday. We'll see. But yesterday was phenomenal, man. We was in the groove, and it was a lot to talk about. And, we started off on a high note. And unfortunately, we ended out in Connecticut yesterday with them letting a guy who, a cannibal, back out into the streets, which is just, I still can't get over that. It's just baffling to me that they would allow something like this to happen. But it's going to be a beautiful day. Today is a good day. Today is a good day. H. Bean in the building, Virginia in the house. Appreciate you pulling up this morning. For those of you guys that are new to the stream, the camera's this way, my screen is this way, so I like to try to make sure that I'm able to interact with the chat, as well. So if you notice that I'm looking this way, it's rarely this way. It's always this way because the screen is right here to the right of me. I guess that would be your left. But I do appreciate you guys pulling up. As I always say, the best way to support the channel is to hit the like button. If you'd like to go the extra mile, obviously join in the ARP family, or you can buy your man a coffee. A link is in the description box. Super chats will stop the show. Super thanks will stop the show. They will get read. If you want to add anything to the stream today, that is the best way to do so. And obviously, we definitely appreciate the support. It goes a long ways, man. You guys do not understand how much it means, for you guys to support the channel the way that you do. But if you'd like to be incorporated, in that way, that is the way to do it. Super chats and super thanks will stop the show, as always. All right. Let's see. Oh, Kenny Cooper, you out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It seems like almost a day-to-day basis. I know you out there on the road, man. Be safe out there, brother. Be safe. And this man, he's all over the place. All over the place. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. What's up, baby lungs? How you doing this morning, sister? Burnsville, Minnesota. Got your coffee? Okay, I appreciate you pulling up this morning, as always. Oh, yeah. True Texan in the house. Appreciate you pulling up. I'm with you, Ed. Let's turn Minnesota red. It needs to. There's enough foolery going on up there, man. One of the highest tax states in the country, which is outrageous. All right, Lexington, South Carolina in the building. All right, let's get the show started, man. Let's get things going. People complain all the time. They're like, man, it took you 5 minutes to get started on the show. But at the same time, man, I want to make sure that I show you guys love. This is a live stream. And, I like to be interactive, and I like to make sure, that you guys know that, one, I appreciate you guys being here, but I also want to, I want to interact with you guys. It's one thing to do these videos, and I tell people all the time, people ask me, how you go about doing this. And I'm like, it can be a little weird talking to yourself because there's no feedback until you post a video. When you're doing it this way, there's instant feedback because I get a chance to check you guys out in the chat and see what's going on. And there's instant feedback, which I appreciate. I like to talk to people, obviously. I do this on a day-to-day basis, so I get to talk to people. But it's nothing like a face-to-face conversation and having that interaction. It's nothing like it, man. But you get people out there that complain. It's like, man, it took you 5 minutes to get the show started. I'm like, man, can I not be appreciative? Like, come on, man. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, man. But you can't make everybody happy. You can't make everybody happy. All right. Yeah, Houston in the house. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you guys pulling up. But I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy the interaction with you guys on a day-to-day basis. I look forward to this. And since we've kind of got this to the morning time, it's honestly, it's been growing, and it's been growing, and it's been a good thing. And Carol Reyes says that you are inspiring me to do a podcast since I have so much to say. Shoot me a message. If that is something that you're interested in, I'll be willing to help you with that. So, if you are interested in actually doing that, shoot me a message. I'd be more than happy, to help you out with that. All right, let's get the show started, man. All right, make sure y'all hit the like button, share the stream if you can. Oh man, I gotta say it. Simon King in the building. We got England in the house today. Many others from outside the U.S. Absolutely, man. It's freaking awesome. This is the international show, not just the national. It's not just local. This is an international thing. And I don't say that to brag. I'm just saying that is the case. This is phenomenal, man. It's phenomenal. What's going on, Detroit HPTV? All right, we got Detroit in the hizzy. There's a lot of Michigan folks up here, man. A lot of y'all. Appreciate you pulling up this morning, brother. All right, let's get into it.
Poll that came out had you up 9+ points, and all of your agenda that you ran on, you're accomplishing that. You got the support of the American people, including stopping the war in Ukraine. If you can comment on the latest Harvard poll, I'd appreciate that.
Well, I was honored by it. It was a big poll, and it's usually a poll that leans on the other side of things, the other side of the world, so to speak. But the Harvard poll is a respected poll, and it has us not only leading, but leading by a lot, and leading on every single issue that we've talked about. And as I said, we've become the party of common sense. And I think that's a very important element now, common sense, because what's happening in the world and even in this country, some of the things that took place, many of them are now canceled and the rest are being canceled as we speak. But we've moved very rapidly and I think very effectively. So I was honored by that poll. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so there's some new polls out there. New polling is making waves. So we got to dive into it, man. Let's talk about it. In the latest Harvard poll, that it's got everybody talking right now, President Trump is leading on all issues. And we'll have to break that down, and what that means for America. Plus, we got President Macron at the White House, and we'll talk about that international showdown in a second as well. But first, let's get into this Harvard poll and what it says about the direction of our country. Now, I don't know how many of you guys had a chance to watch the video that I posted this morning with Bill Maher. He was talking to the youngin' who was sitting on the couch in crisscross applesauce, like he's in kindergarten at 5 years old. I always look at people that are suspect that look like that. It's a little suspect, but we're not going to talk about that, man. But what we're learning is that these people are on the wrong side of every issue that actually matters to the United States, to the citizens of the United States. And this new poll and this new Harvard-Harris poll, it spells disaster for these Democrats because of that reason. Honestly, it's a nuclear bomb for them. President Trump's approval rating is sitting at a solid 52% in his first month back in office. That's right, you heard it correctly, 52%. And get this, 42% of voters say America's on the right track under his leadership, up 14 points from January. That's up 14 points from January. The American people are loving what he's doing on immigration, slashing government costs, and bringing our country back to its core values. And that's the thing that a lot of these Democrats can't understand. Even those that historically have voted for the Democrats, they're not in line with a lot of what they're pushing. And now that we see the numbers coming out about the amount of waste, the amount of fraud that is happening, we all pay taxes. And it seems like every election cycle, you got some Democrat out there saying that people need to pay their fair share. We need to raise taxes on everybody. Because people don't understand it, that when you raise taxes on the business owners, it's a indirect tax on the rest of us. And that's the thing that they assume that the average American citizen doesn't understand. It's all a trickle-down effect. It's all a trickle-down effect. I want to share this screen with you guys. Give me a second here. As you can see in here, when you look at what's the word I'm looking for? The issues. When you look at, where he stands on immigration, 81% of Americans are for what he's doing. 81% support deporting migrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes. 76% support closing the border. And that's the same number for those in support of what DOGE is doing in looking to find and eliminate the fraud and the waste that has basically borderline or almost bankrupt our nation. And this is coming from a poll that's historically favored Democrats. I mean, this is a Harris-Harvard poll. So we know for the most part, more times than not, it's going to be left-leaning and more biased to the left. But all they're doing really is confirming what the rest of us already knew, which is that the American people are rejecting Biden's failed policies and embracing Trump's common sense leadership. And here's the kicker. This poll, it wasn't even close. This wasn't some, statistical margin of error toss-up. This wasn't the case. This was a full-on political earthquake. Trump is not just leading, he is dominating. He is dominating in every category. The American people are rejecting the agenda from should we even call them Democrats anymore? I mean, they are a full-blown Marxist communist party. That's essentially what they are now. That's essentially what they are. And shout out to Gerard Coswell, man. Appreciate you, brother. Gifted 5 ARP memberships this morning. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. I mean, these are the numbers are abysmal for Democrats. And they are now in full panic mode. So much so, I don't know if you guys saw it. So much so that they have Stephen A. Smith. He's ranked as the number 4, hear me now, the number 4 placed candidate to run for president in 2028. You know they are grasping for straws when Stephen A. Smith is being considered as a real candidate to run for president in the Democrat Party. They are in trouble right now. They are in trouble. 66% of Americans say Democrats should join, not try to stop the mission to cut government waste. The fact that they are fighting tooth and nail to keep all this waste and this fraud from being cut or being shared with the American people, the information, the fact that it makes us all think that they are complicit to all of this. The American people are telling them, their own constituents, their own people or members of their party are telling them, stop all your crying and help out. 52% of Democrats deliberately kept the border open. And 77% support a full-on audit of all the government spending, with 72% supporting a government agency focused on efficiency, DOGE. The reality of it is that Democrats, as loony as some of them are, they're still American citizens when it's all said and done. And they're working and they're paying taxes as well. And when they find out that their money is not only, being just wasted, but it's being wasted on people from outside of this country. And in some cases, maybe we'll find out if a full-fledged investigation happens, maybe we'll find out that some of this money has been laundered back into their coffers. And maybe that's why they're fighting for it so hard. Maybe. I mean, you have a resounding 83% of Democrats now that are down with Trump's push to balance the budget. The deficit isn't a Republican or Democrat. It is an American issue. It's an American issue. We're all going to have to deal with it. Now, I'm convinced, and I've been saying this on this channel on different videos for a long time, that I think these Democrats, they wanted to do everything that they could that they can to bankrupt the nation, to push us towards this Agenda 2030 initiative, where basically you'll own nothing and be happy. I am convinced that that's where, because if that's not the case, why are you fighting? Why are you fighting so hard against what President Trump has employed Elon Musk to do, which is to root out the waste, the fraud, and make this company or government, but a lot of people like to call the United States government somewhat of a corporation, more efficient and more effective. You have Democrat voters. They're sick of the waste, the corruption, and the incompetence. They're sick of it. The American people are saying enough is enough. And they want the swamp drained. And that, regardless of what party you stand with, and independents and the libertarians and the Green Party, when it's all said and done, screw the parties. We're all United States citizens. And when we find out that y'all want to tax us more, but y'all aren't willing to do anything different, I got a problem with that. And most people in this country have a problem with it. When you have Democrats finally coming out and saying, hey, enough is enough, we want the swamp drained, they're sick of the bloated bureaucracy and sick of the corrupt politicians wasting their money while working class Americans struggle. And what's the Democrats' party response? What's their response to all of this? More smoke and mirrors, more distractions, more excuses, more media meltdowns. That's their solution to this. Now, while most Americans are with Trump and what he's doing, what he's accomplishing, obviously, you can't please everybody. I found that out, on this, you can't please everybody. And over the weekend, Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, they dropped a bombshell, sending an email to millions of federal workers with the subject line, "What did you do last week?" And you had people losing their minds. All they had to do was jot down 5 bullet points, 5 accomplishments by midnight last night, or it's over. See ya. I mean, honestly, it seems pretty straightforward. Seems pretty straightforward to me. But Musk said, no response, no problem. That's your resignation. And honestly, didn't really seem like a Herculean task. I wrote a memo. I found some mistake, some discrepancy. It didn't have to be some elaborate thing. It didn't. This is classic Trump and Musk holding the bureaucracy's feet to the fire. They've already saved taxpayers $55 billion by slashing waste. 55 by slashing waste, firing thousands of probationary workers that were not in need, and canceling ridiculous contracts like the $4.6 million Zoom meeting nonsense at the Department of Education. Who spends $4.6 million on a Zoom app? I mean, this is crazy. But here's where it gets good. The left is losing their minds over this email, man. They're losing their minds over this email, and it's giving us some pure comedy gold. This alleged government worker went on CNN the other day crying her eyeballs out over this email. I mean, honestly, if I was her parents, I would be embarrassed for this individual. Seriously. I mean, grab a tissue. I mean, this is peak liberal tears at its finest. And it's just a perfect example of why the swamp's shaking in its boots right now. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Again, if this was my child, I would say, I would advise against it. If they called me and said, hey, I'm about to go on CNN and complain about me losing my job, I would tell them, do not do it. It's not going to help you. It's going to hurt you in the future. Could you imagine being the manager interviewing this individual? Could you imagine? Do you think you would hire said person? Probably not. Because that individual, in my mind, and it could be biased, you're going to be a problem if we bring you in here. And if I got to let you go, you're going to blame it on everything except for the fact that you're not good at your job. I wouldn't be interested in interviewing nor hiring a person that would do something like this. And the thing is that what really cracks me up is that the media is willing to exploit these people's, unfortunate situation. But there were no talks about the thousands, millions of people that lost their jobs starting back in 2021. I mean, Southwest just did a layoff recently, but prior to that, Meta were laying off, X laid off people, Microsoft laid off people, Google laid off people, Indeed laid off people. I mean, there was a plethora of companies that laid off people. 2021, 22, and 23, and 24. I didn't see the media asking to talk to any of those people at all. But you want to exploit this situation because you think it actually helps your cause. But it doesn't. It doesn't. But let's check this young lady out.
Tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
Now, somebody had mentioned something. Mike Foster said, nobody interviewed me when I got laid off. Yeah, nobody interviewed me when I got laid off. And I've been laid off in my life. I've been laid off twice. The first time during the 2008, when it got really crazy towards the end of 2008 and 2009, when we had the whole, housing crisis and all of that. Nobody came to talk to me about how I felt about getting laid off from my job. And the second time was probably 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And yeah, nobody said anything to me. And to be honest with you, I know a lot of people that got laid off, and I know a lot of people that are still out of work because they couldn't find opportunities. Now, some of it could be because they were making a certain amount of money and they refused to take a position that might pay a little less. There are some people that's in that situation right there. So their own purpose or choosing to stay unemployed in some cases. But in other cases, there are people actively looking for opportunities and then just can't obtain one right now. And the private sector has been laying off people for a while, but no conversation, no tears for them, no interviews for them. I mean, again, this is just an exploitation of these people to help further their cause and their agenda. But the crazy thing is that, did you catch the time that she said she received this email on Saturday at 3:30 in the afternoon or something along those lines? I mean, maybe if she wasn't on CNN in the middle of the day, she'd have 5 minutes to write down 5 bullet points. Like, seriously, what's so hard about listing 5 things you did in an entire work week? Again, let me get this straight. You can't take 5 minutes to write down 5 sentences, but you can take 5 minutes to go on to CNN and complain. I got it. Everybody's a victim these days. And everybody, honestly, is looking for their 15 minutes. Everybody. That's the reason why you'll have somebody get jumped, robbed, or something along those lines. And instead of going to help the person, somebody will film it so they can post it on X and go viral. It happened out in Baltimore City. An older man got jumped on by some young dudes, and a person stood by and watched it happen. They didn't even call the police. They just pulled their phone out and started recording. It's ridiculous, man. We got to do better as a society. Seriously. We got to do better. You know, and honestly, man, I don't know. You know, but for those in the private sector, working for companies, big and small, and everything in between, you know, we've all had to send weekly status reports, and in some cases, daily status reports at some point in our life. I had to do it. And when I was in management, I required it. It's not a big deal. And honestly, if there's this type of a lack of accountability in these government positions, it's no wonder our government is such a mess right now. It's no wonder. Shout out to L Choppers. Shout out to L Choppers, man, for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Appreciate the love. Thank you very much. God bless you. I mean, it's crazy, man. If you got people out there that can't tell you a little of what they did, a little, without boohoo whining and crying, hey, now I understand. Now I understand why it takes forever to get anything accomplished. You know what I'm saying? When you're working in the government, I understand. I get it. I mean, so many of these people, you know, it doesn't seem like, you know, they've ever actually worked in the real world. And that could be true. Some people come straight out of college and they hired these people fresh out of college. So they don't even know what the private sector is like for real. They don't know what actually having to go to work is for real. There was a lady who posted a clip and she was talking about the people that were working from home. One dude had a farm and he spent more time working on his farm than he did actually working when he was working from home. I mean, it's crazy. You know, and it's not just the whining that's hitting peak levels with these people. It's not. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for them because this isn't the first time layoffs are going to happen, and this won't be the last time. And honestly, if you are working in a job for a company, for someone else, when things get tight, the first thing they look to do is cut the workforce. Because those of you that know that either have owned businesses or worked in management, the number one expense for every company out there is what they call the human capital, which is the workforce. It's the people. That is your number one expense, because you got to think about it. Not only do you have to pay these people a wage, you're also providing benefits to them as well, which adds on an additional cost. Not to mention, you're also paying half of their Medicaid and half of their Social Security investment. You're paying half of that. So people don't understand that it's more than just your actual wage that a company, it costs companies to employ people a lot of money. It is the number one expense that every company has. It's their workforce. I mean, I guess some people may not know that, though. Some people may not know that. But DOGE and Trump, they're not playing around. They are not playing around with this cleanup. And honestly, that email is just a start. They're swinging the axe hard, and the layoffs are rolling out fast. Case in point, over at the IRS, they're dropping probationary workers faster than you can say tax season. And the people are furious about it. They're furious about it. And again, I don't want to laugh at someone's demise, but at the same time, we've seen this. This isn't the first, nor will it be the last. But here goes another interview, you know, of a man who decided to go sit down to discuss being laid off from his position at the IRS.
IRS employee right here in Houston. He was one of thousands of federal employees abruptly laid off this week.
And he sat down exclusively with Michelle Choi to share how he's feeling and his message to those in power.
Nothing there. Nope. Nothing there.
As he waits for an official termination letter to arrive at his front door, Jason Charles shared the toll the last 48 hours has taken on him.
I can't believe this is happening, and it happened so fast. Like I said, I was just in training. I waited 4 months to go to training just to be fired.
He's one of 6,000 plus federal employees who work for the Internal Revenue Service fired this week as part of mass layoffs happening under the Trump administration. The majority of those workers, like Charles, were probationary workers employed for less than a year. Charles told us more than 24 employees were laid off from his office here off Gessner. He says it took over a year to get his dream job as a tax-exempt officer dealing with nonprofit organizations and compliance.
I wanted to serve the people.
And despite recent news, he'd held out hope his job would be spared.
How are you feeling?
Numb, confused, sad, angry, lost.
When did you get the official notice, or was there an official notice?
We never got official notice. I got word from managers that had to be in office yesterday, and we waited there all day until maybe 12, 1 o'clock. And then
this is so weak. Honestly, this is weak. This is a sign of weakness. There is no way I would get out there and do this. There's no way. There's no way that I would do this. Seriously. Maybe, it's one of those, I'll get on and do this interview. Maybe I'll get some sympathy from somebody and they'll hire me. But this is a sign of weakness right here, man. What man would do this? What man would do this? Hey, Regina, that's down in Houston. Cost of living down in Houston isn't that or expensive. It really isn't. You can actually get a really nice home for not a whole lot. But then again, who knows? But yeah, he don't look like he's doing too bad. But the fact that he said, he waited until 12, maybe 1 o'clock. I mean, that's basically all day, essentially. But this right here, this is weak. This is not a good look, man. Not a good look. But let's keep going.
It was kind of like a firing range. They lined us up, took our equipment, and sent us home.
His pride and passion taken away.
Excited.
You know what? Before I let this thing go, when the last company I was at, when we all got laid off, we had an all hands an all hands Zoom meeting. All hands. Everybody gets up there. CEO gets on there and says, hey, unfortunately, we got to make some hard decisions. We got the cut. I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was a certain percentage of the staff. And they let it be known. And they're like, hey, if you are a part of that, you will get an email within an hour after this Zoom call. So, of course, you had a lot of people freaking out, so forth and so on. But it is what it is. Most layoffs are abrupt. And honestly, most firings are even more abrupt. Most firings are even more abrupt. But at the same time, you should plan for unexpected things to happen. You should. But let's keep going.
I was so excited to learn the job. I was telling my management I was going to be the best. They can count on me.
Come on, bruh. You crying on national TV, man. What's going on, Ronnie? You crying? Come on, bruh. Really? Tears?
And it's not like I have no say-so. Like, they just toss you away. And I thought corporate America was like this, not the government. I thought the government takes care of their people.
When asked why he would speak out now,
this was the only way I had a voice. I can't go to Washington and go in the Oval Office. I can't I can't contact my congressman. He's too busy. He doesn't want to hear me. I try to reach out.
Ladies in the chat, this is not for the guys. Ladies, would you look at your man, if this is your husband, would you look at him the same after he got on national TV and cried? Come on, man. Would you look at him the same? If he was one of the homies, I'd be like, bruh, that's not a good look. That's not a good look, bruh.
This is the only way I can get people to hear what happened.
According to a statement sent to KHOU 11, the National Treasury Employees Union president representing the Houston area believes more than 200 people working for the IRS offices in Houston have been fired just this week. These layoffs, of course, happening in the heart of tax season.
Every department has a probationary employee. Every department will be impacted. I don't know how severely, but people will start seeing the impact soon.
Charles believes there will be a ripple effect.
Do you want your job back?
I would love my job back. I would love it back. To serve the American people and talk to people that I've talked to, I would love my job back.
And has this message for the president.
Let us work. Let us do what they employed us to do, what we took our oath to do.
In Houston, Michelle Choi, KHOU 11 News.
And you can hear Michelle's extended interview.
I'm embarrassed for the guy. No one in this man family called him and said, hey, bro, don't do this. This is not a good look. Where are your friends? Where is your father at to tell you, bruh, do not get on TV and shed tears because you lost your job. It won't be the first. I'm sure it's not the first. It won't be the last. That is not a good look. That is not a good look. Now, if you want to, be frustrated, upset, maybe shed a tear or two by yourself at home, okay. But for you to get on TV, and do this, oh, bruh, this is not a good look. That is weak. Weak. Oh, my gosh, man. Oh. Man. Oh my goodness, man. I'm at a loss of words right now. Golly, man. That might be one of the weakest things that I've seen in quite some time. Seriously. That might be one of the weakest things that I've seen in a very long time. Oh, man. Wow. Dwan, hey, man, you said it. You said it. Golly, man. Losing a job, I mean, it's rough, man. I've been there. Being laid off from a position, it's rough. I've been there. I've been laid off from a job that I really, really liked. I enjoyed the company, the people that I work with, but life goes on, and I'm for daggone sure am not getting in front of nobody's camera and crying for y'all. No, it's not happening, man. It's not happening. What do you tell your children? I got young boys. I can't tell my kids that I cried because I lost my job, because I wouldn't tell them to do the same. Hey, man, hey, okay, that door closed, another one will open. But I'm also one of those people that I believe that I am a child of God. So yeah, a door closed, but he always makes a way. So there ain't nothing to shed a tear about. There ain't nothing to cry about. Okay, that one's closed. Okay, that must not have been for me. He probably has something even greater in store for me. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So, I mean, to an extent, I kind of feel for him, but his approach, terrible. Terrible approach. I got to ask, man, your father, somebody needed to tell you, bro, that's not a good look. But let's be honest here, man. That's the mentality that's rotting this country from the inside out. That's the mentality that is rotting this country from the inside out. Oh no, the government's not taking care of me anymore. Really? Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Christy, for the 1999 super chat. Thank you. And yes, God is extremely good. Extremely good. So there's no way I'm getting down and out like that. There's no way I'm gonna allow some people to put me on a stage like that. No. No. I mean, it's crazy. He said, I thought this was like that in the private sector, but not the government. Did y'all catch that? I mean, it's a job. When he said, again, he expected this from the private sector, from corporations, but not from the government, that is a problem. That's a problem. It's a job. And it shouldn't be up to, it shouldn't be a situation where, I didn't expect that the government, would do something like this. I expect the government to cradle me. But a lot of people do feel like that because they know it takes an act of Congress. Once you get past the probationary period and you become full-fledged, locked in step with the union, it takes an act of Congress to get rid of you. So a lot of people, they're doing everything that they can to get these positions because for a long time, they knew, hey, it takes an act of Congress to fire you. So once you're in there, you're pretty much locked in. But if he was my friend, if he was somebody that I knew, I would say, hey, bro, first off, first thing you need to do, pray. Pray. That'd be number one. Two, then go grind. Go put the work in, go get an opportunity. Go do it. Go dust the resume off. Go dust the resume off. Go update your LinkedIn profile. And then get out there and go figure it out like the rest of us have to do in the real world. But see, the thing is that if you're not somebody that is a believer, I guess that is difficult to do because you're looking at the world and you're not looking at the fact that, hey, there is something that's in me that's greater, that's always looking out. So, when you have this mind of carnality, it's hard to see that, man, you're just looking at it for what it is and for what it is right now, not understanding that. And I've had to learn this the hard way. And I talk about this because I've had to learn it the hard way. There were opportunities that I wanted. There were promotions that I wanted that I didn't get. And I was frustrated. Now, I didn't go crying about it or whatever, but I was upset. Only for God to open up a door that was even greater than the one that I thought I wanted. And it's happened time and time again. So at this point, when things like that happen, I don't stress about it. I don't worry about it. Because one, stressing and worrying, it's not going to help you. It's not. This right here, my grandma used to tell me all the time, man, that's why I have it right here on the hoodie. Again, I will have some of these things ready to go here in the near future. My wife is working on on the merch for me. So hopefully we'll have that up and running in the very near future. I'd like to have that happen this week. But my grandma used to tell me all the time, man, don't pray, don't worry. All the time. And once you start operating like that, you don't let any of this small stuff get to you. You don't do that. And if he was operating like that, he would not have put himself on national TV to look the way that he looked because he looked weak. But again, if he was my friend, I would tell him, pray. Definitely don't worry about it. Go update the LinkedIn. Go update the resume. And then get out there and go figure it out like the rest of us would have to do. I mean, this isn't daycare. Last time I checked, you are a man, a grown man. I would assume that you have some people that depend on you. This is America. It is the land of opportunity. You can go get out here and make it happen. And honestly, Trump's bringing back that kind of grit that built this nation. He's bringing it back. It's not about handouts. Seriously. You know, and an IRS agent, I don't know if that's the best way to gain sympathy anyway. I mean, you're talking about an agency that's been weaponized against hardworking Americans for years, auditing small businesses into the ground, harassing taxpayers, you know, sitting on a pile of, 15,000 probationary workers. I mean, come on, man. You know, like seriously, if these guys over in the media actually think that the Americans are going to shed tears for IRS agents getting fired, IRS agents, I mean, come on, man. Of all people, you got to be kidding me. Seriously. People just tell me when I got out the military, hey, man, you need to go get you a gun. I was like, man, I want no parts of it. I want no parts of it. I mean, the media is out here acting like we're losing national heroes here. I mean, it's just not a good strategy, man. And poll after poll after poll is showing that 76% of Americans back DOGE's waste cutting. 77% of people in this country want a full-on audit of the spending. And you think that we're mad about a few tax collectors losing their opportunity, a few publicans losing their opportunity? Really? I mean, the disconnect is unreal. It really is. I mean, these talking heads, they live in this fantasy land where, they think that Americans are sobbing over IRS agents losing their gig. I mean, come on, man, wake up. This is the Trump revolution in action. Ability over handouts, results over tears. And to be honest with you, as a man, you should want to live in that reality. There was a time when we had to eat what we killed. And if you didn't get out there and go hunt anything, you didn't eat. And to be honest with you, you didn't deserve to eat. The people are done with the swamp. And they're cheering every daggone cut. Every cut. Golly, man, that's so upsetting to see. Seriously. It really is, man. But speaking of what the people want, we got to pivot. We got to pivot to the very unpopular French president, Macron, who visited the White House yesterday. Because while Trump and DOGE are cleaning house here at home, the world's watching how he's handling the mess overseas. So let's get into it, man. Make sure y'all hit that like button if you haven't done so already.
That is the most beautiful language. I have no idea what he's saying, but that is the most elegant, beautiful language. Go ahead, please.
This is a question that was asked by several. What we need to do is make sure that we are building peace. We have deterrence.
Can you speak up, please?
We have deterrence.
Hey, talk about being able to get along with everybody. I mean, but again, you kind of got to have a little bit of charisma, to be in that space. I don't know if you guys have read the book back in the day, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. Dale Carnegie, he talks about that. I would assume that President Trump has read that book. I would assume. But I want to get into it real fast, man. It's the issue of Ukraine. And that same Harvard poll, is crushing the Dems. It's got some wild numbers on Ukraine as well. 72% of voters want a settlement with Russia. Right now, not today, not tomorrow, not a month from now, not a year from now, right now. That includes 80% of Republicans and 73% of independents and 61% of Democrats. Also, it's worth mentioning that a majority of independents also favor direct negotiations between the U.S. and Russia to end the war. And with Macron in D.C., trying to play nice with Trump, despite their Ukraine-Russia divide. You better believe this ties right back into what Americans are demanding, which is leadership that gets stuff done, not endless wars or excuses. I mean, think about it, man. The Russia-Ukraine's war hit its 3-year anniversary. 3-year anniversary. It doesn't even feel like this thing started that long ago, but it's been 3 years. And it's a complete mess. And honestly, it's not our mess to clean up. Putin's been pounding Ukraine since 2022. He annexed Crimea. That was during the Obama administration. Launched missile strikes on civilians, starving the energy grid. I mean, NATO and the EU, they've been wringing their hands, throwing sanctions at Russia, but I mean, it's not enough. Russia's war machine, it keeps rolling. And Trump's pushing for a quick ceasefire with Russia. And the Europeans, I mean, they're dragging their feet, whining about territorial concessions and acting like scared kittens, while we, the American people, pick up the tab. And let's call it what it is. The Europeans are being a bunch of little whiny babies. France, Germany, the EU, they've got the bread. They got the money. They got the armies. You know, they got a stake in this. But they're sitting back expecting old Uncle Sam to bankroll their defense while they sip espresso and lecture on global unity. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. The EU spent billions on sanctions, but they're still buying Russian gas. Now, make that make sense. Y'all done put billions of sanctions on these dudes, but y'all still buying gas from them? Still tiptoeing around Putin? And still begging us for more U.S. aid to Ukraine. And you got to ask the question, who's capitalizing off of this? Who's capitalizing off of us continuing to send money to these people? And sure, they've also spent their own money. They have, but nowhere near as much as we've spent. And Macron talked about it a bit, you know, at the presser yesterday, you know, trying to flex about Europe's contributions. But, you know, listen to it for yourself.
The idea to have Ukraine first being compensated because they are the one to have lose a lot of their fellow citizens and being destroyed by these attacks. Second, all of those who paid for could be compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they were the one to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear, we have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me. But they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But, you know, that's only fair.
To do something.
Hey, Trump not letting that slide. He's not letting that slide. He's like, y'all gave it to him as loans. We're giving it as basically grants. We're not expecting anything back. But he said, we changed that. Now we're getting something back. I mean, the EU's at what? They've given these people what, $100 billion since, total since the war started? And that's the EU. The EU. That isn't one country. That's the EU. Seriously. But are they bleeding for this? I don't know. I mean, seems like, they're getting, they're waiting to get paid back. See, the EU's, they got this little plan. frozen Russian assets, 300 billion sitting in Western banks, and they're itching to use that to reimburse themselves for every dime that they've sacrificed. Macron's, coughing up French taxpayer cash out, of the goodness of his heart, because he's banking on Putin's money to refill their coffers once this is over. And meanwhile, the U.S. is sending real aid with no guarantee that we'll see $1 back, more or less a penny. So yeah, they're paying, but paying with one hand while holding the other out for a refund. Also, not to mention that the U.S. has given $183 billion in total aid to the Ukraine since this war started. The EU as a whole, they gave 100, and that's a multitude of countries. Here we are, the United States by ourselves have given $183 million or $1 billion of taxpayer money. And I'm not just talking about military aid. We've given all this Western aid, and the war is still at a standstill. This has gone on for entirely too long, and the people paying the highest prices are the ones stuck in the middle of it. And whether you love Trump or hate him, he's the only U.S. president in the last 2 decades under whom Putin didn't invade a neighbor. And that right there is a fact. The media loves to twist his words, but what he's been saying about Ukraine actually makes a lot of sense. This war isn't going anywhere. Ukraine's counteroffensive failed, and Russia is still sitting on a clunk of Ukrainian land. They got a whole chunk of it. And the reality is this: no amount of U.S. or European aid is going to suddenly turn the tide. The fighting, yes, it has turned into a bloody, expensive stalemate. That's where they are right now. And Ukraine was never getting into NATO. Let's just keep it on. Let's just be honest, man. Let's keep it real. Ukraine joining NATO was never going to happen. Everybody knew it. U.S. policymakers knew it. European leaders knew it. Even Zelensky himself knew it. The only people pretending otherwise are the ones who need an excuse to keep this daggone war going, because they're making money off of it. War is big business. And these people, pushing this endless war, they don't have a plan for how it ends. And honestly, they don't really care. There are folks in D.C. who act like this is some brilliant strategy to bleed Russia dry, but let's keep it real. Russia has been through worse. They've survived economic sanctions, military disasters, and political chaos before, and they're not suddenly going to collapse just because the West wants them to. So the only alternative is peace. It's get a deal that gets Ukraine what it actually needs, which is security, stability, and the ability to defend itself without dragging this war out forever. And guess what? That's not a loss for Ukraine. Ukraine has already proven its strength. It stopped Russia from taking Kyiv. It resisted full-on occupation, and it's still standing with the help of the United States. But the goal now should be to end this war and make sure that Russia never tries this again. But let's talk about our friends over in Europe for a quick second. Because some European leaders are acting like the U.S. is the bad guy here. Germany's new chancellor is already talking about how Europe needs to distance itself from America. But at the same time, they still rely on U.S. military protection and economic support. But they want to distance themselves from us. And to be honest with you, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, because we don't need them. They need us. We don't really sell goods in their country like that because the taxes are too ridiculous. But they for daggone sure sell a lot of goods over here. We don't necessarily need them. They need us. Now we have a multitude of bases right over there in Germany. Maybe we pack those things up and go in a different direction and pay that money to some other country that's in that same region. I'm sure that they would be glad to have us. I'm sure of it.
Ich wird absolute Priorität haben, so schnell wie möglich Europa so zu stärken, dass wir Schritt für Schritt auch wirklich Unabhängigkeit erreichen von den USA. Ich hätte nicht geglaubt, dass ich so etwas mal in einer Fernsehsendung sagen muss. Aber spätestens nach den Äußerungen aus der letzten Woche von Donald Trump ist klar, dass den Amerikanern, jedenfalls diesem Teil der Amerikaner, dieser Regierung, das Schicksal Europas weitgehend gleichgültig ist.
Yeah. But here's the deal. You can't have it both ways. You can't. You can't have it both ways. If Europe really wants to be independent, then it's time for them to step up and take their own defense seriously and stop expecting the U.S. to foot the bill. It's really that simple. At the end of the day, I mean, this war isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about common sense. Do we keep funding a war with no end game, with no end in sight? Or do we focus on getting a real practical solution that stops the bloodshed and keeps Ukraine secure? And Trump's record speaks for itself. He kept Putin in check without starting any new wars. He actually got peace deals done in the Middle East, something nobody thought was possible. And this approach to foreign policy, it's simple. Be strong, but don't waste American lives and dollars on conflicts that never end. But here's the ugly truth. Not everyone's on board with that. Peace through strength, focusing on our own problems first. Not everybody is with that. And among them, even some Republicans don't seem to want this war to end. They're addicted to the chaos, the contracts, the power trip of playing the world's cop. And they'll trash anyone pushing peace, like Tucker Carlson, who's been calling out this Ukraine mess from day one. He's been calling it out since day one. But who am I talking about? None other, than the evil twin of J.D. Vance, Dan Crenshaw. Do you guys, I don't know if you guys see it. My wife always see the similarities in people. But Dan Crenshaw looks like the evil version of J.D. Vance. But Dan Crenshaw, who was caught on a hot mic the other day, saying some not so nice things about Tucker. But before we get into that, let's see what he had to say about the Republicans who oppose this endless war and the suffering. Check this out.
I guess their reasoning is they want Russia to win so badly that they want to oust the speaker over it. I mean, it's a strange position to take. I think they want to be in the minority too. I think that's an obvious reality. I'm still trying to process all the bullshit, so.
Oh, man. I don't think it's that, though. I don't. I think we just want the U.S. out of there, and we don't want to send any more money over there. That's really what it is. But back to what he said about Tucker. So early last year, you guys know it. I'm sure you guys had the chance to check out the interview. Tucker went over to Moscow to interview Putin. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it or watch it, but Tucker is a real journalist. Putin didn't come to the States. He actually flew over to Russia. He flew over there to sit down and have a conversation with Putin. Now, of course, a lot of, left mainstream media, they were not happy with him for doing this. They called him a Putin apologist and so many other names. But in my opinion, Tucker Carlson just showed himself as a full-fledged journalist. I mean, it's his job. This is what he does. He goes and he sits down and he interviews people. If he can't get them in his studio here in the States, he will go to them. But of course, Dan's been painting him as some sort of traitor to the country for doing his job. He's a journalist. He went over to do an interview. I mean, Putin is the leader of Russia, whether you like it or not. is a major player in this whole Ukraine situation. Major player, key player. And if we're serious about ending the war, you don't just ignore them. You go sit down, you go listen, you go ask the hard questions, you go figure out, where the cracks are. That's what Tucker did in February 2024, flying to Moscow for that bombshell interview. I don't know if you guys had a chance to check it out, but if you hadn't, you probably should go look at it. Take a look. I mean, he was the first major Western journalist to do it. And that's a lot of my problem with legacy media. They act like, oh, I'm not going to give this person a voice. Last time I checked, you're journalists. Your job is to go get the answers to the questions that the people have. But these people, because they're stuck in these echo chambers, they refuse to go and talk to the opposition. They refuse to have debate and civil discourse. That's a lot of the problem in the Democrat Party right now. It's because they refuse to debate ideas. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they can't necessarily defend the ideas. So when you can't defend your idea, there's no point in having a debate. But when you get Tucker Carlson to go over there and speak with Putin, being the first major Western journalist to do it in years, and you get, a Crenshaw's take that is just flat out ridiculous. But see it for yourself.
$100 billion to Ukraine. I know that people like Tucker Carlson would make the argument that there's a real opportunity cost there. We could have spent that money on the border or fixing, issues in America. Yeah. What do you make of that argument that all this money could have been spent to help Americans and not Ukrainians?
Well, you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. We spend 75-80% of our budget on a welfare state in America, on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I would love to ask Tucker what he thinks that $100 billion should be spent on, and if he would vote for it as a conservative. Tucker doesn't know what he's talking about. Tucker likes to visit Moscow and talk about how great the grocery stores are. So I don't really take his advice very seriously.
Hey, Eric Smith, I'm going to open it up. I want to hear what your friend has to say about his experience in journalism school. If you can stay and jump on, once I wrap up, I would love to hear it. Seriously, if you could stick around for a second, I'm sure all of us would love to hear that. Seriously. But this dude here, man, Dan Crenshaw, man, acting like $100 billion is just petty cash. Are you freaking kidding me? $100 billion is petty cash? Talking about the welfare state, but doing nothing in Congress? I mean, come on, man. I wonder if he's getting any kickbacks. And he just, he wants to keep the gravy train going. I wonder if that's the case. But the biggest moment on this in that segment, was him saying, on a hot mic, about Tucker, man, these guys, there's not a lot of love for each other. There really isn't. Not a lot of love for each other. Hopefully, I'm not for sure if this one is bleeped out, but I want to share this with you guys. Hold up, give me a second. Hopefully it's bleeped out. I hope. We'll see.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot. If I ever meet him, I'll find the
That guy's awful, man. Well, at least it was low enough. But he used the F word. He said, "Hey, if I ever meet Tucker," this is Congressman Dan Crenshaw saying that he'll effing kill him, and he's not joking. The crazy thing is that the crazy things that people say with the microphone attached to them. I mean, I tell you, man, people say some real off the wall things, when they think people aren't listening to them. Yeesh. I mean, we literally got a sitting congressman fantasizing, about offing Tucker Carlson because he had the guts to go sit down with Vladimir Putin out in Moscow. I mean, come on, man. These people are awful, man. But the reality is this, man. What's the what's probably the case when it comes to Crenshaw is that, him, and his Warhawk buddies, they're losing their minds because Tucker dared to challenge the narrative, the establishment, the Democrats, the rhinos, legacy media. They want this Ukraine situation, this conflict, they want it to drag on forever. Afghanistan's over. This is the next one. And they need this to last for another 10 years so they can capitalize off of it. You got to ask yourself why. But I would say, as people always say, follow the money. Billions in weapons, billions in, what do you call it? These weapons contracts, NATO's bloated bureaucracy, and Europe leaning on us to fund their defense while they get months off for the summer and take siestas. This isn't just about Crenshaw losing his grip. It's about the whole rotten system that's been bleeding America dry for decades. We're talking the Uniparty. The rhinos like Crenshaw and the Dems, they're in lockstep with each other. They're addicted to these endless wars, wasteful spending, and the war machine that profits off of our blood and treasure. And they're not just rattled because Tucker sat down with Putin. They're terrified of losing their grip on a system that thrives on chaos. This isn't just about party lines. It's about survival for these people. And that Harvard poll that we started to show off with, it didn't just bury the Uniparty. I mean, it screamed that 72% of Americans want the Ukraine and Russia war ended. They want them to hash out a deal, not bleed out in a trench. And yet you have Crenshaws out here fantasizing about silencing Tucker for daring to ask questions. The last time I checked, journalism, if you are a journalist, your job is to ask questions, sometimes to some people that you don't care for, that you don't favor. That's the last time I checked. That's what it was about. And while DOGE is shaking up Washington, firing thousands, exposing bureaucrats who can't justify their paychecks, and saving us money, the Uniparty's playbook is clear. Keep the wars endless, keep the spending reckless, and keep us distracted while they fill their pockets. But Trump is flipping the script, demanding that Europe pay up, pushing peace over proxy wars, and tearing down the bloated machine that's been draining us dry. Look at the IRS meltdowns, the European whining, the media sob stories for tax collectors. None of it adds up unless you see the bigger picture. This war machine isn't just overseas, it's in our backyard, fattening up on our tax dollars while working class Americans struggle. And Trump's vision is no more free ride for NATO freeloaders, no more blank checks for Kiev without an end game, a real end game, and no more silencing patriots who expose the truth. Crenshaw's tantrum proves it. They'll fight tooth and nail to protect their gravy train, but the American people are not backing down. They'll do everything that they can to keep this thing going. But the American people have spoken. We don't want it anymore. We don't want it anymore. Eric, I'm gonna drop the link, man. I need you to pull up for a quick second. I don't know if you responded or if you seen it, or maybe you had to dip out. Maybe you did have to dip out. Okay. That'll work. That'll work, Eric. I appreciate it, man. I'd love to hear that though. Seriously. But I appreciate you guys pulling up as always. Shorter show today than yesterday. But I appreciate you guys pulling up. Appreciate those that supported the channel. Christy L. Choppers and Gerard Coswell. Shout out to all the Blues. T.A. Caskey. Appreciate you pulling up. B. Renee Suzanne, Regina Connell, Zephyr K9. Appreciate you guys pulling up. All the ARP family members. Appreciate you guys pulling up this morning. You know, I appreciate you guys supporting the channel, man. We'll go ahead and wrap the show. We'll get up out of here today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, appreciate you, TA, out of tax. I know he means Massachusetts. But again, I appreciate you guys pulling up as always, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. It was a good amount to get over, to get into, but you know, we try to bring things that are relevant, but every now and again, we also like to share some things that we just, come across that, that are just crazy, kind of like yesterday with what was going on up in Connecticut. But yeah, man, appreciate you, Edmar. Appreciate you, Christy. I appreciate you all pulling up this morning, man. As I always say, man, stay prayed up out here, man. Keep God first. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you all tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Appreciate you guys, man. God bless. Love you guys, man. Peace.
Vibes so